If you're enjoying this podcast from us here at Which, then why not become a Which member? Right now, we've got a special offer, especially for podcast listeners, meaning you can choose any of our 3 membership tiers for 50% off the usual price. Starting at just £39.50 for a full year, you can get Which magazine delivered direct to your door. For the same price, you could also choose a digital Which subscription, giving you access to all of our product reviews, the Which app, and the digital edition of Which magazine. What's more, you'll also be able to use the Ask Which service for personalised one-to-one buying advice. Or why not get a full access Which subscription for just £49.50 for a full year? Don't forget, that's 50% off the usual price. To join Which or to find out more, just head to which.co.uk/podcast offer. That's which.co.uk/podcast offer, or click the link in the description for today's podcast for 50% off a Which annual subscription.
Flight delays are getting worse. But why? Hello and welcome to this episode of Which Shorts. Now, this week I found Kate Pasola's piece from the September-October issue of Which Travel, which analysed a whole load of data to find out why more flights are being delayed, what's causing them, which airlines are worse than the rest, and crucially, explains what more needs to be done to keep passengers in the loop. Here's Kate's piece, adapted for the podcast this week, read by me, James Rowe. The taxi turned up, security went smoothly, passport in hand, you arrive early at the gate because nothing is going to stand between you and the holiday you've waited all year for. Until the departure board flashes red. Your plane is delayed and the waiting game begins. It's not just bad luck, flight punctuality has gotten worse. When we checked the Civil Aviation Authority data for 6 of the biggest airlines between May 2024 and April 2025, all of them were less punctual now than they were in 2019. But which airlines are the worst for punctuality? Well, any plane is classed as delayed if it leaves more than 15 minutes after its scheduled departure time. And according to the data we looked at, TUI was the worst of the 6 big UK airlines we reviewed, with the lowest average percentage of on-time departures, just 59.2% of flights departed on time. It also had the second highest percentage of delays over 3 hours after Wizz Air. Back in 2018, an average of 70.7% of TUI's departures were on time, but by 2022, that had slipped to 42.6%. And although it's improved in recent years, TUI still hasn't fully returned to its pre-pandemic level of punctuality. Second worst for punctuality from May 24 to April 25 was Wizz Air. Its average on-time rate was already as low as 66.8% back in 2019, and by 2023 it had plummeted to 55.6%, but it has now returned to its 2019 levels. It's a similar story for Ryanair, whose average on-time departures were at 77.8% in 2019 and fell to 63% by 2022, only recovering to 66.5% by 24-25. Even British Airways, which tops our table, has slipped significantly. Its punctuality was at 71.5% in 2019 and as high as 75.8% the year before. But by 24-25, it had fallen to 68.7%, and it's a similar pattern for EasyJet and Jet2. Yes, these figures can't tell the full picture for 2025, but they show that on-time departures across the board have slipped from 2019 levels. Ultimately, this means you're more likely to be inconvenienced by delays in 2025 than you were in 2019. But why? Ryanair says you should blame air traffic control. The airline even launched a website called Air Traffic Control Ruined Your Flight, along with a League of Delays, claiming to expose the worst ATCs across Europe for delays due to mismanagement and staff shortages from January to May 2025. But does it stack up? Well, Eurocontrol, which speaks for the European network, admitted that in some parts of the network the number of ATC officers is 10 to 20% lower than would be needed to manage the demand. While it said there was no immediate staffing problem in the UK, air traffic control shortages in the network, whilst location-specific, caused delays across the whole airspace, adding to the bottlenecks created by high demand alone. The UK's own air traffic control body, NATS, told us it's fully staffed and operating normally. However, there are valid concerns that ATC might be encountering a retirement bulge, according to David Avery, National Security for Aviation at Prospect, the union that represents most air traffic control officers in the UK. And re-recruitment is difficult. He estimates that 40% of those who apply for a job ultimately fail. Any possible staffing issues are only made worse by other factors, such as certain parts of the airspace being closed off for military or geopolitical reasons. Airport capacity is another problem. Avery says there are physically only so many aircraft that can land and take off. The only way to address that, he says, is through national infrastructure decisions, like a third runway at Heathrow or a second at Gatwick. But are the airlines themselves also to blame? Well, in June this year, air traffic returned to pre-pandemic levels for the very first time. And in some cases, it's the airlines struggling to stay punctual that are putting on a record number of flights. Take Ryanair, for example. Although it hasn't returned to pre-pandemic levels of punctuality, it's scheduled over 162,000 flights in 2024, according to the Civil Aviation Authority. It's almost 25,000 more than in 2019. Some airlines claim their delay rates are due to their reluctance to cancel flights. Wizz Air also told us it would rather delay than cancel a flight, and that some delays are outside its control. It told us that it's committing to enhancing the resilience of its operations to minimise cancellations and reduce delays. TUI said, "We want to be more punctual, but we also keep our credo to never cancel." EasyJet told us it always does all possible to get our customers to their destination on time and minimise any delays, despite flying in some of the most congested airspace in the world. Ryanair and BA, meanwhile, didn't provide a comment. Despite increasing flights year on year, the League of Delays tells passengers that the solution is to complain to MPs and ask for greater government investment in ATC. But it would take more than a decade to make a difference, according to John Grant at travel data provider OAG. We need more runways, more coordination with Europe and more common European airspace. They go on, the industry accepts it will never operate and doesn't want to operate at 100% punctuality. Most people in the industry would accept that an on-time performance of 80% or above is pretty good. That's 4 in 5 flights arriving within 15 minutes of their scheduled arrival time. But most of the big airlines are currently far from that benchmark, so why do they keep putting more planes in the sky? If you've been delayed, then what are your rights? Well, if you're delayed by more than 3 hours, you're entitled to compensation. But airlines aren't responsible if the delay wasn't their fault, for example those caused by unpredictable weather, or crucially, delays they claim are caused by ATC. But it can be tricky for passengers to find out exactly why they were delayed, which can cause thousands of compensation claims to go unmade. A government study in 2021 found that 85% of delayed flights could have been eligible for compensation. This means it is worth pushing back if an airline refuses to pay out. Perhaps airlines will be proactive about reducing delays only if they affect their profitability. In other words, when the cost of paying out compensation is greater than the cost of taking precautionary measures. And that will only happen when passengers can more easily find clear, accessible, transparent information about the reason for every single delay. That brings to an end another podcast from Which. There's loads more for you to read about everything we discussed today. Just head to the episode description for more useful everyday advice. There you'll also find an exclusive offer for podcast listeners like you to become a Which member for 50% off the usual price, giving you access to our product reviews, our app, one-to-one personalised buying advice and every issue of Which magazine across the year. Plus, your membership helps us to make life simpler, fairer and safer for everyone. If you'd like to know when we release a new episode, then make sure you press subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you can be one of the first to listen. And for any questions, comments or anything in between, follow us on social media at WhitchUK or email us podcasts@which.co.uk. Goodbye.
Do you want to reduce your energy bills? Or maybe you want to use greener energy. Go solar and get a discount. Right now, Which members can get a 7.5% discount on solar panels and their installation if you use Heatable, a Which Trusted Trader approved service. You can also include a storage battery and EV charger, handy if you're looking at making the switch to an electric car. To make use of this exclusive offer, simply head to which.co.uk/solar-offer. That's which.co.uk/solar-offer before the 30th of September 2025. And if you're not already a Which member, you can grab a year's membership for 50% off the usual price. To do that, go to which.co.uk/podcast offer to get involved. Start your solar journey today. Go solar and get a discount with Which.